Ambit goes to Hunter Richner's shed to do an arc and arrow test. That must have been impossible for a beginner. So far it's a you get nervous, because the rule is simple. More brutal, score 200 points on 30 shots, using weak equipment. When the sender fires the first arrow, he misses completely, making it look like Hugh only came to be a shame. So the weather changes quickly. The next shots start hitting one after the other. And before anyone understands what's going on, Sen starts hitting the center like a veteran. What seemed like an impossible challenge turns into another moment in which Sen's proof that it is much more dangerous than it seems. The reason is that arcane hero Sen's survived a war against the monsters of the world. After a difficult battle and beat them, he finally dies, but then it is revealed that he regressed, wasted, and reincarnated a total of 55 times. All this was caused by the who invoked to that world, and kept sending him back. No matter how terrible his death was, she praises that he lasted longer than. On the other time, when the sender hears this, he gets angry, but unbearable, just ask if I should reincarnate him again. Since it's been a while, Sens loses patience, grit your teeth, and says she's the cause of all your problems. He tries, remember when you got to that dimension, but it can't because it's been a long time. At the time, they told him to find airport and save the world. Since then, he died several times. And she always made it reborn in different ways. Just to face almost the same fate. Despite all your efforts. In the end he couldn't figure out what airport it really was. Frustrated, he screams with that, saying you can't go on, and that she herself should find airport. As always, she replies that it is impossible, because it would destroy the world. He said he'd freak out before that. But she doesn't understand, for it has always ensured that the body and mind, his were perfectly every time he reappeared. At this point, Ambet realizes he couldn't argue with her, even admitting she's right about fixing it. The memories of dying pain I felt every time I died always came back vividly and ran his mind. The accumulated trauma has gone far beyond its limit. As usual, she asks if they should prepare already for the next cycle, and which part would he choose, but he screams saying it's over. Then she reveals that she was joking, and praises for doing his best on paper that he was given. She says he won the right to return to your world original, and he is shocked, because it failed every cycle. In saving that world, she explains that the process was more important than the result, so he shouldn't worry about it. Without wasting time, she casts a spell to send it back. As Hambert, that's not ready, tries to ask a lot of questions that bother him. As always, the Then don't listen and says that all he has accumulated will manifest, like a great power. Hambert, extremely irritated, screams with her, but she just says she expects great things of him in his original world, and so he is sent back. You are on the ManhwaCapped channel, and that's the story we'll see today. You know, right, actually. Leave the like at the beginning of the video, and shove as much as you can. Said that without windings. Already subscribes to the channel, if not, register. Activate the bell, and erase the story. That is simply amazing. Months after returning to Korea, he wakes up in the morning, and realizes that his original life has returned. He notices that his mother has already left for work and looks her military uniform, who received after completing service in the Korean army. He gets angry, because it looks insignificant, after having gone through similar things, repeatedly, in another dimension. Despite being his 6th time serving, issues complaints about how difficult it is, adapt to modern life and blame. But now that you got an internship, he wonders how long he will last. He decides to go back to school to ask for a leave of absence for work. Life seems uncertain. And while thinking about your problems, get a message from Chuiho calling for a drink. Heenit refuses directly, and his friend makes fun of him, calling him a fearful let it go, because Joe and Hugh helped him during military service. Right after he went back to Korea, by rereading the message, realizes that Yoon-lu I was, and wanted to give a pantry gift. Emma gets serious, asks for details, and ends up meeting him. They meet at a cafe, and Joe Yoon-lu, your superior in the army, despite being 5 years younger, already goes straight to the point. Issues question about the present, but Jiu tell him to calm down. The guy already gets up to leave, so Jiu shows a card, saying it's the game registration project. He explains it's a membership card that allows you to get the equipment to play at home. Offers as a gift, says it costs about $500, but Hambert refuses, saying he just got the job, and is too busy to play. He reminds Joe and Woo of their family situation, and mentions that he may need a second job. When Joe and Ho realizes his priority is to make money, mocks, saying he has no romance in his soul. It irritates Rambet, who pulls on Ho hair and asks if romance and games put food on the table. Joanho then reveals that Rembeth can earn up to $75,000 playing the project off registration. Immediately, Remy sits and pays attention. Joanho explains about Team Zero Company, responsible for the game, and says founder Michael Walton left his will that all company rights be given to those who zero the game. First, he comments on how the game is already popular and how the local currency highly valued. He shows trends and explains that not only guides are being sold, how large conglomerates invested, choose strategic teams within the game. Ambi thinks and knowing who Michael Walton is, accept the proposal, surprised and happy. Yeonhyu asks if they should go to the event immediately. When you get there, Ambi sees the crowd and complains more. He says it is worse in Europe and the United States. He called Ambi by the collar and takes it as far as they can. Pick up guide for beginners. There he explains that the game is not friendly for beginners, so the adventurer wrote a specific guide. And that it was thanks to him that he didn't give up. After listening, he went to read the book and gets frustrated with the content. Jo and Rue asks if anything is wrong, but at this moment the whispers to him it. Remembering that he expects great things from him, Enitz wonders why the mission to find Red Airport is in the book. Remembering that the said she would be watching. She understands that she never intended to leave him. Free angry, he crushes the book, and Ahue asks why he is being so serious. MB ignores you and asks if he knows anything about Zero Team. He talks about Michael Walton's youngest daughter, current company representative, and says it's all he knows, as members are being kept secret. Mitch finds it suspicious, and concludes that there is a connection with the. He then wonders, because everything has to happen within a game. The world it was sent to was real, where he felt disgust when he killed for the first time, and also by dying now, he questions whether he should go into it again, but think you can finally end your suffering. He asks how long the equipment will take to arrive. Mom replies that about 2 hours. He takes Reddit's cell phone and sets everything up, in addition to insisting that they pay for the dented guide. After that, they go out and one says goodbye. A few hours later, the package arrives and Hill calls you that an expensive console. He checks the equipment, door lock, and notes that his mother will take time to return. Right after, he closes the equipment and enters the game world, or skin system. And he realizes that the universe looks more real than expected. He tries to change the appearance, but note that the boot menu does not appear. So criticize the game, even though it is popular, and try to restart. To your surprise, failure, and the system informs that the generator has already exists while the game has flaws. He makes Sangata as sure it's her fault. When it appears in the port city of Adline, realizes it's been a long time. He then looks at a nearby studio and is shocked when you see that you keep the same appearance of his last attention. He wonders if it was a silent message from the start over. Suddenly, get a message from Rupert, asking to add it as a friend. And when opening the profile, Yanwu game number appears. Hambert realizes it's him, because of the luxurious clothing. Yano asks why he customized the character to look like real-life lighting. Hambert, embarrassed, replies that it just ended up looking like this. Even so, Yano asks about the nickname, and Hambert is surprised. Because I didn't know that. With the help of Wu, find out your nickname is Black Dragon. Irritated, he grabs Wu and asks how to change. But Wu and says it's impossible. It makes Himing angry. So it discounts on friend. But Wu sent him to check the notifications. By doing this, a warning appears asking if he wants to broadcast his. After live the Wu explains the terms and talks about splitting the games, half to half, to here they can take up to 60 person. If they are fine, Remet accepts and Wu starts broadcasting. Immediately, in the world he presents Remet to the spectators, and says he will pass to play with him, promising interesting content. Spectators start mocking Rembet by the bad nickname, and he gets angry. Penru calms down, and remembers their goals. While keeping on mocking, Anu teaches the basics, and asks him to check the skill recommendations that analyze the player and suggest about 3 suitable options. Skills range from magic to sword. And returned, wonders if the techniques he learned in its 55 cycles exist in the game as abilities. Curious, he opens profile to see his skill, and an intense light appears, anyway leaving viewers shocked. The spectator immediately make negative comments about Hambert's skill choice. Some even denounce the account. Surprised, Yanu asks how he got that. And Han replies that he doesn't know. In addition, he doesn't even understand the system well. Between several options, Hambert chooses magic, irritating spectators. And they think he's playing for fun. Confused, he asks Enru if magic is bad, because of their reaction. Enru explains that the most important in the game is proficiency, and that compared to other skills, magic is much harder to evolve. Even appearing a star icon, when it reaches the maximum, can't keep up with progress. Viewers agree with the mistake. and they say the rebel cry and scream after using the same spell for 2 months. When seeing the comments, Ribi remembers when something similar happened, and how he was hard to learn magic in the other dimension. That's why the master who teaches makes a lot of difference. So he asks in Russian, there is a master to learn magic in Russian. Surprises, the chat starts to criticize, but he calms everyone down and explains that by completing missions, they gain rewards with skill books that allow you to learn instantly. Already indies have the advanced, but not enough to teach skills directly to the knowledge of books. Rabite comments that it got easier, different from one of its cycles, in which he had a master who trained him to the limit. Thoughtful, he suggests going to the general store, surprising the group. He already knows this. Enru says they can buy fire magic with Julium. When hearing the name Heen, Julius calls you an ugly cup leader. When Ianu says they want to buy a magic book, Hamet keeps badmouthing the trader, and spectators find it brutal. He still says he'd rather save 1,001 people before saving Julius. Even so, Yenyu insists on going to the store, but Hamet decides otherwise. He navigates the system and sees image of Yatsubal, your former magic teacher. Then asks Yenyu if he knows her. Yenyu thinks he only wants her because she is beautiful, but Sens insists that she is excellent and very patient. Yenyu explains that Yatsubal is just a missionant who commits fraud and theft and ends up in prison, disappearing. Then he said that, because of the beautiful design, the company received many requests to develop her story. But it didn't happen, and Bet says he will prove otherwise. He insists on going to Itsubal. Spectators are irritated by this. And realizing this, he decides to follow their plan and go by July. When seeing this, make a bet. He is wrong. We'll have to dance. He accepts in Stockholm. When asking Yanu follow him, Yanu strange the way, but Himit says it's a shortcut. Surprised, Yanu asks if it's his first time, and Himit replies that it was just a guess. Shortly after, arrive at July store. To see it, Himit is surprised, remembering that he was arrested because of him in a past cycle. He asks Emu about the interaction level of Andis. Emu explains that the player's actions can influence game progress by spectators, and also discovers that some players had mission block and need to adopt their characters. Irritated, he enters the store and goes straight to Julio, grabbing by the throat and asking if he's trying to do the same thing. Then the garbage flame. You chat are shocked and warned that someone is coming. Julio then does not understand the accusation and asks to be released, saying he just came to buy a book, itch or loose, and Julius says the last book was sold, but can refer another store if he does a favor. He explains that broke into his store in his sleep, and suspicion of its rival, Atsubul. He asks for help capturing that. Immediately comes the mission. The chat believes that Rambert is lost, for a scammer would not be rewarded, but Rambert remembers that Heaven is your true master of magic, and that in a past cycle, was framed and arrested for Julius, who bribed guards and forged evidence. Curious, he asks what happened to the and Nomu explains that the disappears after being arrested, indicating that someone innocent pays for the crime. Himit ignores Julius and goes to the shelves, even with the eye talking. He searches until he finds a bag and shows it to Julio, asking if this was what had been stolen. Immediately, the system gives you 500 gold for exposing the coup leader. Spectators are surprised when seeing that Julio is really a fraudster. Julio commands Humbert leave, but Humbert steps on his face and they end up hurting. Spectators who bet against Rumit complain, while others say they already knew. Suddenly, a guard enters the store demanding explanations and Sens thinks he is lost. Moments later, Julio is arrested. Watching everything, Sens realizes that it was different from past cycles, when you had to face corrupt guards to hand over Julium. The system then informs that he has completed the mission and will receive another when going to Itsubul's store. While the chat discusses, Humbert feels like the game seems to have been prepared for that, and one wonders if it is coincidence, and impressed. Yoon-Hil question how did he know. Rambo invent, saying you read something like this in a fantasy novel, and that perhaps the creator of the game is the author. Nobody believes, and calls him a nerd, and Rambo is relieved to have spoken. So much fantasy in the army. Suddenly someone donates 10,000. Ianu thinks slyly, completely changing your attitude, and be surprised by public reaction, and decides to leave the social part with Ianu, while focusing on what you can do. Curious, he asks if its Sewell store shows up in a certain direction, but Inwood says he didn't know the connection between her and Julius, and that this will generate discussion in the community. He heads towards a store, and Hammy comments that over time, everyone will forget Julia. He remembers Heaven as a temperamental woman, and bossy, that because of Julia from the last cycle, was arrested and burned to death. For him it is a precious and mysterious memory now. He knocks on her door, and goes straight to her, who asks who he is, and says he's never heard before. She asks if he came looking for her, already knowing who she is, and he look at her, calling her a novice, and asking if it's her first time there. He admits he showed up, because he wants to learn magic from her. She gets up from the table and asks, what does he mean by that, calling from you? Then she asks why, should teach someone like him. But he realizes that everything is going as planned, since she would refuse. Thanks to what happened before, he already has a solution. In Izo, cat goes crazy, with Manny calling her mommy. And at this time, Ava observes a bee, and asks if it is the black dragon. He confirms, and reveals that Julio was trying to incriminate the Eslatra. When she heard this she sighed. Flame Julia from garbage, and thank you for getting her out of trouble. They shake hands and conclude that his face already gave him. Then she looks around, knowing he wants a magic book. But he asks her to wait, and asks if she's looking for a cure. Surprise, she asks how he knows this. And he replies that the information is on her table, so he suggests helping her find the cure. What irritates her? She asks if he understands medicine, and he replies that yes, feeling his confidence. She asks for the name of the disease that causes blue pupils, dizziness, and vomiting. Ambi admits he doesn't know the name, and by her reaction, confirms that she has been deceived several times by Fae specialists that only wasted time and money. Now after repeating this experience several times, he is surprised to reveal more symptoms and say that potions don't work. Shocked, she grabs him and asks if he know the disease. He replies that she has no name, but knows how to cure that. Surprised, she begs for help, and promises to reward him well. He guarantees he will get the medicine, and a mission appears immediately to cure her mother's illness. He must find the medicine in Adlan, and he was rewarded with 2,000 gold, a magic book, a Tsul fireball, beyond a rank, and 500 experience. The chat goes into shock knowing that Rembet can get a rank sooner. And many run to join the game, until Yuno is surprised by this, and explains to the beginner how rankings were. Dai says rank is like level, while the classification represents C. Anyway, same ranking magic books may have different performances, depending on falsehood. Hambert wonders if this was done for being a game. He now thinks maybe it's just finding the medicine collecting items, but Hambert becomes thoughtful and concludes that he will need to use book performance to show her the value of rank. Hamu asks where to go and Hainat suddenly turns around, scared. Hamu asks what happened and Hainat hears mother's voice. He answers and leaves the game, leaving Hanwoo alone. Wo-chat starts laughing when he discovers that the big black dragon left in a hurry to attend to the mother. Hambert runs to the door, greets mother, and says it was busy. She gets it wrong, and starts hitting him, thinking he was doing something inappropriate, since he doesn't usually lock the door. He explains himself, showing the expensive equipment he earned for the year as a pantry gift, and saying I was playing. She looks and comments naturally. What surprises you? And he realizes that she already knows the game, because of the news. She tells him not to spend much time on it, and he replies that he will only play a little, since you got an internship. Surprised, she hits him for not telling before. When she asks why, he says she would have stopped. The rigid woman hits him in the face, says it's obvious because no parent wants their child to start working right after leaving the army. He holds his nose and explains that he is in his last semester and will need to work right after hearing. She tells him not to skip breakfast, since the work is long. She comments that he didn't eat anything, but he said Anu paid for a pair of chocolate. She doesn't consider it food and fights with him, wishing good luck, before going to the room in it. Look at the time and realize it's already late. What your first day as an intern will be like. Decides to sleep early. Moore feels bad about Anu, who is being bombarded with comments. Who already an employee of the dedicated department. From the RIP sees the confusion of the server about its Sewell's mission and rank. But don't believe, he looks for Enwui's account, and only finds things related to monsters. By the comments, find out Enwui is with someone named Black Dragon, Teen Flame Ed, who got scolded by his mother. Curious decides to check on his own. And is out in the game, and you see many new comments, asking about Rainbit. Some think he's funny, but Anu explains that he has already finished his military service. Only the mother is very obedient. He sees that the arrow has shot and is surprised, upon realizing that Lev reached the general public, then called the center asking for attention, but get a message from him apologizing. Remit explains that he had to go to war, but left a hint on how to get the medicine. And Anu tells this to the chat, and cheers up the audience, saying that healing can be achieved with good limes, and that if they discover, before remittance return, he will give more information. In Quanto Izzo, the sender arrives at work formally dressed. Enters shy and warns that it is the new intern. To your surprise the atmosphere is chaotic, with everyone running. An employee comes and asks Mihu, take you to the meeting room. Mihu greets and asks him to follow him. Says he will later show the contracts. But for now he must clean the whiteboard. Heimbert obeys, but soon a boss comes in. Nimru presents and Heimbert promises to work hard and from that moment on, must learn a lot. But the man just tells him to do what is said, and leave when finished. After leaving, Heimbert gets discouraged, thinking that he can already predict the future of the company, and that you will have to learn alone. At least it's better than the other dimension. In Quanto Iso, Ianwu is happy, realizing that no one has managed to complete the mission that sends, suggested but then sends back and criticizes the spectators for lack of, saying they need to think more. It pisses everyone off, almost making them lose patience. So he takes a device and says it will show how it's done. They go to the main gate of the city, surprising Ian Street, who asks again if he is really a beginner. As always, Remittance says he learned by reading many fantasy novels, and comments that the game gives more freedom than others. But ahead, they hear a commotion, and see a lot of people gathered, and EU concludes that they are players who have come, after seeing the post in the community. Suddenly, someone announces the arrival of a vanguard and they come, a group approaching. Surprise, Yanru says information has spread, more than he imagined. Confused, Emit asks what the vanguard is. Yanru explains that they are the top 10,000 players, classified by level, proficiency, progress in history, and other factors. Among 300 million players in the world, only about 10,000 are hackers, 500 from Korea. It confuses returns, since many still haven't learned magic, even wearing magician clothes. Enru explains that most avoid magic because of the difficulty of evolution, and many just dress like that by style. Emits observes a special bow and says it remembers it, for it is the bow of the golden bird, greeted by a sheltered craftsman. Surprised by such an advanced group not having completed its Subul's mission, Hamid asks Iru about this, but discovers that most of the vanguard belongs to conglomerates, and many try to reach that level to receive full support from companies, since that way they get rich without having to complete the game. Suddenly, a girl touches a maid's hand, and after confirming that he is a black dragon, question when he intends to show how to complete the mission. He replies that he will start soon. Right after, another person appears screaming that it's a lie. Yet, the woman insists that he give the armpit a chance. People start to argue a lot about experiences with scammers, and as the chaos continues, Hamlet tells Ian Hugh that they must go towards the sea. Ian Hugh gets confused, since the liner pumps are on the opposite side. Then Hamlet explains that you need a fishing rod to make the medicine, and Hope and Chak get even more confused, without understanding what Humbert intends. Suddenly, someone makes a donation, and in that moment, the price of the fish and the waters of Alden shoots. People realize that there are many speculators monitoring Humbert in real time and adjusting currency value. When seeing this, Humbert gives a laugh, because they have no idea what's going on. Curious, Ianua asks if what they need is in the sea, but Humbert acts with difference. What irritates Ianua, frustrated, Ianu thinks about streaming audio if Hemit is lying. Hemit interrupts him and asks you to trust him, borrowing 70 gold coins. Everyone is shocked, and begins to suspect. When they arrive on the boat, Hemit realizes that there are many more people than usual, and asks Yanu why. Seeing Yanu's hesitation, Hemit promises to return the money, and Nu says he's just insecure, because you don't understand the stick plan. Fishing. After observing the area, Remy meets an old man named Uldric Fishing, approaches and asks to buy the stick. The old man asks if he wants a special stick, but Hambert responds provocatively, saying you know he can. I heard it. Hambert offers 50,000 gold coins, but the old man asks for 100,000. They keep negotiating until they reach 60,000. Hambert realizes that the old man is still the same as before, and as they talk, he feels sadness. In the end, the old man accepts and buys the stick for 60,000. Spectators criticize a suspicious attitude of referring, but he considers victory to be victory. Temple. Then Hambert arrives at the scene with the fishing rod, while the chat wonders what he will do. Well, keep asking for role play. A novice asks what good slammers are. Inohu explains that they are extremely sensitive slammers. Touched, explode, even attacked from a distance. Also explode, and even eye contact can detonate them. In addition, leave no items when they explode. The beginner does not understand how. Hamid intends to use the fishing rod against them. Hamid observes a good slime below, and says it's at the perfect height. He prepares the party, noting differences in sensitivity to reality. While preparing, Yanu informs that there are many people following them, because of the spectator. Mike says he already knew, because they were being followed since they left town. Receiving the situation, sends requests control of transmission irregularities, and turn off the lift, saying that there will be a technical problem involved. In the past, in the Inu army liked to read fantasy, but no one shared this interest. He read repeatedly until he wore down the books. Como Tempo, he might appeared, and to Inu's surprise, also knew the war, helping to notice details I had never noticed before, giving the impression that Himites really knew that world. Years later, when viewing the game Yanu thought playing with the Himite would be amazing. not present. Yanu informs you that only your screen is being streamed. He might says they should pretend to be focused on the slimes. Yanu asks for that public follow the channel, but viewers complain. Might understands their frustration and comments that the pursuers will soon reach the. Shortly after, the group I followed appears. Ambit turns on the transmission, wave and throw the hook, explaining that it is so sharp that good slimmers cannot react. It activates a mechanism that releases thorns at the tip, allowing to control the explosion. The slime always explodes, but keeps the core intact. The enemy group gets scared and retreats, but a rain of slimes falls on them, forcing them to flee. Even so, are caught in the explosion and eliminated. Enru is impressed with Hanbert's efficiency against stream snipers. With a freeway, they find a different colored slime. Hambert captures it with the stick, but it doesn't explode. He keeps the slime and says he got the necessary material. Everyone is surprised. Hambert explains that one is a dead slime. What happens when several slimer bombs are eliminated? At the same time, survivors turn into these slimes. Defective. And in the U then, ask if you will be able to complete the mission, following this method, and Sen says it is showing precisely. So everyone can do the same. Although controlling the explosion is no longer easy. They then go to the Yatsubal store. And Quanto Iso King already misses a small game. Realizes that Send is not the common beginner, and believes that he is connected to a large corporation. He suspects that he sends, diverting players' attention. While something bigger happens, King already wrong decides he needs to complete the Yatsubal mission. But can't. That day, later, Remet and Ian Hu come to Tsubal. She weird slime data and prepares as a medicine for the mother, but refuses. When seeing the result, Hamlet asks Ian Hu if it's that bad. Sewell decides to compensate him for taking care of Julio, and asks him to leave. Hamlet then provokes, saying she's not desperate. What irritates her? She screams at him. Then Hamlet sticks the medicine in her mouth by force, forcing you to swallow. Ian Hu is shocked. She runs inside to vomit. Ringmit states that the medicine worked, while Ian Call points out the obvious. Shortly after, she comes back furious, secure refer down the throat, and ask why. He asks if anything like a seed came out, and explains that this is the cause of the disease. He reveals that both her and her mother were infected by a seed parasite. She gets confused, but he insists that what she vomited was the cause of this disease. He explains that realizes that she was sick too, since the first meeting, and that she hid it, not to worry the mother, and to avoid being exploited. He says the seed grows in the extreme south and settles in the stomach, being acquired by consuming ingredients from that region. Slime pump mucus is the only means to remove it, and that's why they need slime dad. Since it doesn't explode, front of common slimmer pumps. When ingested, dad slime makes the body reject the parasite, forcing the vomit, eliminating the seed that caused disease. She then reveals that it was not a disease that she had. He hands over the plate and tells her to go fast. See your mother. He watches with compassion, saying that even being in a game world, she hasn't changed inside, calling that of a silly girl, who always cares more about the pain of others than with the. She could be tough on words, but I was always on his side. So, now he wants her to be happy. Then she offers the medicine to her mother, causing her to vomit big seeds. She also gets mad at people who cheated all this time and smiles, promising not to let them escape. The chat is surprised to see this, and even comments that it's been a long time since there was a smile. She thanks while wiping out the tears. And everyone who watches the broadcast come to support her as a favorite, but Hamid remembers they didn't do anything. She says it was thanks to him that she and her mother are alive, then take a spell book and give it to him. He thanks, but she says he is saying her speech. In one demonstrates the will to play in the book, but Rembert remembers it's his, then suggests that they leave for the main mission. To their surprise, Hatsuel's flame back, saying you still have more to offer. She delivers a great reward, and the system informs you that the reward for the first conclusion being granted. When the Hamlet receives 2,000 gold coins, the system doubles the value and their status points increase from 3 to 5. He receives experience bonuses, level up, and the book Atsubal evolves from status to this single class, while the sender wishes Atsubal happiness. A notification of first conclusion appears. When seeing this, the whole chat fills with messages. Enru is as surprised as Hambert, who didn't expect the book to change rating. Enru asks Hambert to say something to the viewers. But when he looks at the screen, the chat is moving so fast that becomes impossible to read, and Enru cares about how to deal with the situation. Azul delivers a sheet to Hambert, and there is a warning calling her savior. In addition to awarding a multiplier of points from it, she says it's a blacksmith store presentation, where he can check items if he needs to. She believes they don't have normal weapons, and that their equipment was destroyed when trying to capture the slime. She thanks again, and asks him to come back whenever he needs help. Chat people act as if she had talked to them, and some even join the game to try to find her. With this, the duo leaves the store and wonders what they do. Then, Enru shows map to Rimbet and explains that there is no fixed route in the game, so they can go wherever they want. Normally, everyone starts at Edwin, but then they can explore freely. It can be dangerous, since it is impossible to end up in high-level areas without realizing it. Still curious, Ginyu asks why Rabbit is wearing the real face. In the game, instead of customizing it, Rabbit thinks if I should say it's because of the Enru bragged about design, saying it took 5 hours to create, or worrying chat. He also warns not to be deceived by characters, female, since they can be men wearing these scars. As you think of your next destination, Hemet receives notification from a spectator who donated 50,000 won, asking to see Yanhu. Irritated, Yanhu immediately thanks, and other donations start to arrive. 10,000, then 30,000. Donations continue. Yanhu thanks everyone. It shows the sends the amount of spectators, which exceeds 8,000. Sends thanks. The chat calls for an overreaction, while remitting calculates donations, realizing that your par reaches almost 250,000. At this time, Enru starts doing the 0-2 dance, scaring the spectators. Enit realizes that just completing the mission by Atsubul already made a lot of money, and start thinking about how much you can win in the future. It reminds me of the mother, when the took him showed the flow of time in the real world, and he saw that it was gone, making your mother spend it all to find you. So, he decides to do anything to make her happy, and who asks Hambert to use the magic book, saying viewers are waiting. Hambert active, and the magic book disappears, revealing the ability, single fireball, that ignites everything with a big explosion. When reading the description, he comments that it looks easy, different from the skills you had before. Enru asks him to describe the feeling. At the beginning, Might says he felt nothing, but he realized you need to entertain. The chat pretends that information is invading your mind. Still find it strange, because he really learned the skill, and begins to question why what you learned in the other world is appearing in the game. Yuno asks him to demonstrate skill. Rimi looks at you in a nearby area, follows the process and fires a huge flame that completely destroys the target. Yuno is impressed. While analyzing the magic, the Nundi feels this gaze upon him, as if she tried to pull him. By regaining the senses, receives a notification, indicating increase in all skills and unlock of skill Shaken Spirit. Hembit cursed God in a low voice. Worried, Enru asks if he's okay. Hembit disguise saying, but it was just the effort to use high-level magic for the first time, then asked to see a common Enru magic. Surprised, Enru warns not to laugh and casts the spell, but only a small flame appears and goes out. Hemit criticizes internally, but decides not to insist. Instead, explains that Enru is imagining magic in it. Wrong. He says it's not something you learn just by reading, and blame Julia for diverting them from basics. Then, explains how magic really works, and concludes that it does not intend use single attribute magic as principal, for the purpose of magic is practicality. Enru is shocked, remembering that Rimbet created the character the day before. The chat starts mocking Rimbet for being nerd. Irritated, he almost loses his patience, but after a big donation he calms down and apologizes. They ask where he will go. Hammett decides to go to a secluded place to earn points, before following the main story. When entering a shed, and Enru comments that the place is strange, Hammett goes straight to talk to the owner, and then to see an archer named Hunter Richard. Richner asks the reason for the visit, and Humbert replies that he wants to learn the bow and arrow. Seeing your trust, Hirschner decides to test it. A mission arises requiring Humbert to pass the test. He taken in a shooting range, and needs to score 200 points in 30 shots, with a center worth 10 points. Enru's suckers invest in agility. Mass Cream refuses. The first shot misses completely, but he says he already understood. The second hits, 7 points, surprising Enru. After that, all remaining shots hit the center, totaling 287 points. Something impossible for someone at a low level. In Quantum Iso, in the city, a woman plays with gold coins, complaining about boredom and wanting something more interesting than cheating old people. Suddenly, she spots Hembet and Ian New going through the gate. And if you wonder what kind of idiots came, look for it a few moments before. Right after getting the seal of an archer, and some gold coins as a reward, Emi looked much than him, who gained skill. So Rada asks why. And it does. Enru praise him and asks if he practices, something that flashes at school. Enru gets extremely excited and with money, revealing that he opened a betting pool, just in case they hit a big underdog. Since no one imagined that Rabbit would be good at archaeology, he laughs saying it would be amazing to do things like this from time to time, and the chat reminds him that they are still there. Curious, Ian Hugh asks where they are going and says he wants to learn fencing, but first you want to ensure the ability of agility. This surprises Ian Hugh, and part of the chat, who did not understand the relationship between skill and fencing, and even call. Even so, Hambert run out and sent Ian. He stopped complaining and followed. When entering the city, Ian Hu shows an NPC called Rhea and explains that people avoid Agility's hill because her mission is too hard for what skill offers. He asks again if Rambet is sure, but Rambet simply approaches Rhea, presents himself and says he came to learn. What does she do best? She look at him, says he liked the attitude, but immediately fires at high speed, stealing your coins and smiling like a witch, saying they are too slow. It announces the training rate of 5,000 gold. Pay the kidnapper. Surprised to see that he doesn't react, ask why. And he replies that since she got the payment, the minimum is to teach it inside. He remembers that she has stolen much more of him during his 55 cycles in another dimension. Judging the calm posture of Remit, he says he doesn't like him, and at that moment it announces the beginning of the class. The test is simple. He must try to capture her. It moves so fast it leaves residual images. A mission arises, saying he needs to catch it within the time limit. He achieves will win the skill and agility book, status points and experience. Flag chat. Hambert understands that it is practically impossible, because I laughed normally only allows completion after taking 25,000 gold and make the player wait 3-hour cycles, totaling 15 hours. In addition, not possible to perform other missions and time pauses to leave the game. Hambert says he's going to get it, and New claims it's impossible, since no one managed to do it directly. Hambert then thinks, and concludes that if he cannot hit it alone, he calls someone who can. They go straight to Yatsuel's store, and Hambert asks for help capturing Rhea. Surprise, but happy to see you again. Asudel asks how he knows that she and Rhea are related, and he lies, saying this is known on the street. No option. She accepts, and leaves angry. This surprises Hanru and the chat, when they find out they are sisters. Repeatedly, again, saying you saw something written indicating where I was laughing. Would be, but the chat checks the video, and finds nothing. Some conclude that he has sharp vision, which explains your bow skills. He then says to Seven, to always pay attention to the environment, and that arresting Subal wouldn't help anything. Soon Subal calls everyone, and they go to the hiding places of the city. And Quantoisa replays with a cat, and thinks Hannah has given up. To your surprise, Asubal appears behind her, clearly irritated. In moments around the river, she complains saying it's cheating to involve Hasubal. Hannah replies that she herself said that he could use any method. As you already have history with her, the Subal flames her, and rebukes her harshly, saying to stop it, or end up messing with someone dangerous like Julius. He apologizes, but it's not enough. Subal sends her back to the store, and warns that it does not tolerate, and concurred hands hemp the agility book, saying you've never met anyone like him, and what promises promise. Immediately dirty mission notification completed. As he quickly completed, the reward is maximized. 3 times as many status points and 500 times more experience. The chat cannot hide the envy, seeing that Hempt got another unique ability, and quickly flees, hoping not to find Hambert again. Shortly after, Ian Huo Figant Hambert, and realize he lost everything. Hambert shows the book and says it's unique class, leaving Ian Hugh speechless. Even the spectators can't keep up with him, and wonder how they can know things. Before Ian Hugh, holding the book, he might says now is the time to learn fencing. It absorbs the book but still think it's weird, even though he is the third curious, and Enru asks why he wanted agility skill. He might explains that inner race would have an advantage over Enru because of her. Enru comments that the unique falsehood does not seem make so much difference. More Hanad, who has died more than 50 times, knows the value of skill. Enrua then grabs his sword, and says he's a veteran, ranking 2 in advanced level fencing. The chat starts to make fun and Hamid repeats everything to him. Hamid comments that most players follows the same path because of guides, and that no one interacted with at Subal because of July, or Cope leader, or that it was already a chain effect, and it makes it difficult to find the right path. Hamid states that, for being the first to complete at Subal's mission, and laugh, the experiences he had are clues to the right path. He decides to follow his own course and no longer be manipulated. Even without knowing what the two plan, when they leave town, Himbe asks you why Ndizzy grimaces. The sought after is so far away, and Enru explains that he is a reclusive swordsman. They arrive at the place covered in mist. Enru flame Bowder, the swordsman, saying they came to learn fencing. Balder look at them, and Noah comments that he is still intimidating. The swordsman picks up a wooden sword, and sends, from Hambert, swing that, until he tells you to stop. Without liking long conversations, he sends Hambert to start. Shortly after, Hambert drop his gear and grab the sword. In Wu explains that the mission is divided between billions of blows and combat. Curious, In Wu asks the chat, how long did it take to complete this mission? And answers vary between an hour and half an hour, and less than 3 hours. They also warn not to irritate Baller, because a player has already been killed by him after making fun of what went viral. And Wu finds a strange NPC be able to kill players. The chat promises big donations, recovers, finish training in less than 25 minutes, and informs us that the total has already passed 800,000. Encouraging shipping, he realizes it's twice the value of previous bets, and concentrates He understands that the important, not the amount of strokes, but the attitude. From the beginning, Balder didn't expect much from beginners, as many treat the sword as commonplace. What he dislikes, what Balder wants is seriousness. Hammett concentrates, hold the sword, and look at the bucket when it's about to attack. Soon interrupt, leaving the chat. Continues. Hammett looks into the system and gets a new mission. Fight Balder. With difficulty, adjusts your level and attributes, and you see this, and tell the chat that Hambert passed the first phase. While they assault and say that the bet is no longer worth, one of the spectators donates 10,000, saying you'll double or lose, or that Hambert need to do is to twice block the wooden ball or sword. To access, then, another player donates 100,000, demanding that Rembet blocks 4 hits and completes the challenge, or else you should jump off a cliff with a bangle. Jump. This makes Rembet a little worried, because there is a great chance of your proficiency influence the difficulty. I also get apprehensive about being hit. More Hambert sorry maliciously places the hand on his shoulder and scares him. To Flivment, Hambert promises they won't need to jump a bungee jump. Suddenly, a spectator adds 1,000,000 to the bet and comments on the friendship of the two. Hambert is shocked upon realizing that the total is close to 2 million. So he prepares to face Bowler. He takes his stance as Bowler watches quietly before shooting. With an inverted stroke, Hammett can tram, but it is thrown back. In out the chat are shocked by Bowler's aggressiveness, and even more so because Hammett managed to block. Bowler then moves forward with quick blow, but Hammett blocks again. Feeling the impact, he notices his movements are slow, for being in the game. Continues because of equipment ain't great. Even so, thanks to the ability of agility, he manages to react in time. Balder stops for a moment, and comments that it seems to be thinking too much, questioning if he is relaxing or just dealing with the unexpected situation. To everyone's surprise, Remittance reappears repeatedly, irritating the chat. Balder, who had judged him correctly before, says he was wrong, and decides to end it quickly. He advances with perforating attack, but Hammett says they will only know the result in the end. Right after, Balder delivers a heavy blow that shocks everyone, and they wonder why he's taking it so seriously. By little, Hammett deviates thanks to its agility. The chat is impressed with your reflections, and he realizes that Balder is getting impatient for not being able to face it. Balder tries another attack, but Cambridge blocks with stick. He comments that Balder's movements are getting wider. Balder retreats and prepares another attack. Rambert feels the danger, and at the same moment, the two advance against the other. When your wooden swords collide, Rambert's gun breaks, and he is thrown back. As it falls, he tells the chat, who managed to block 4 consecutive shots. He declares the mission completed and laughs, saying it was tiring. Some spectators who bet, they hope that the fight continues. But soon appears a notification saying the duel ended due to the breaking of the sword, who bet against claims. While the others comment on how insane the fight was, when getting up, issues question to William Rowe about money. Ian Hugh promises to share everything equally. After transmission, curious, Ian Hugh asks what Ramit did before the army. Ramit, think about its 55 cycles of progression, possession and reincarnation. He responds vaguely, while Ian Hugh comments that the chat is trying to guess your professions, all related to the use of the sword. A spectator asks how Ian Hugh intends to share the money, and he says he wants to give everything to Rambat. Surprised, Hamlet remembers that they had agreed to split half by half, but Inru insists, saying it was all thanks to his skills. Hamlet is grateful for the attitude of Inru. At this time, he discovers through the chat what the challenge was not real. The same spectator donates another 100,000 and asks Hambert, keep using the sword, so everyone can watch and learn. And they agree. Right after, Hambert observes a Balder leaning against a tree, and realizes that despite looking calm, he's cracking down on your anger. Issues concludes Balder is angry with himself for having been read by a beginner. Yet, he approaches and asks if the duel ended. Balder confirms and asks him to wait while he go get something. Hambert realizes Balder is taking control, not to show anger, and that the next one to adopt it will probably suffer. Balder returns and delivers the fencing book. Hambert comments that this is already the 4th book he has received. The system seems to inform that, based on Balder's assessment, the reward has been maximized. He receives 3,000 gold coins, a ranking training manual, one and the other in on a class book. Everyone is surprised by the reward sequence. Someone donates 10,000. While the chat asks for lessons, Hamid asks Ian Hugh to deal with this and walks away. Ian Hugh takes over the broadcast and offers to teach fencing, but the chat sends him out. Hamid goes to the flea market and asks for more alcohol. Balder then says his master went to a line and delivers a piece of fabric with a sword symbol, saying that if he shows that master will at least hear you. He says the master must be where the wind gathers. When the remittance goes back to Ian Hugh, says it's time to go, but see Ian Hugh doing a reaction dance. A spectator do 1,000 and comments that many people will run after Balder. After they leave, leaving the overloaded. When they arrive in the city, Yunrum asks if they are going after Balder Master, as Rumid says they will stop for today. He explains that he needs to work and that will be a problem, if not sleep a little. He stretches out and then says goodbye, saying you'll see it the next day. Enru agrees and wishes good night. Hemit leaves the game. Enru asks if he'll be back right after work, but Hemit refuses and closes. Back to the room. Hemit wakes up sweaty and hot, decides to take a shower and sleep. He wonders why the intense heat. When you receive an Enru notification saying you will make the payment immediately, money is transferred and Remit, who preferred to receive everything at once. Then I almost went into shock realizing that they won about 3 million in just 2 days, with about 10 hours of. He thinks about quitting his job, but remember that you decided to face reality instead of just living in the game. Even feeling bad for the spectators, decides to keep the transmission like Rob. He also thinks of Enru, but believes that these donations don't always happen. In addition, your mother would be calmer if he had a steady job. Before going to sleep, he thinks it would be good. Show more of your gratitude as a son. The next morning his mother knocked him out of bed. He stranged the time, but she says it's not early, showing the cell phone. She asks about the great amount of money he sent. Without letting you explain, she asks what he did overnight, and fears he's doing something wrong. She even hits him on the head. Before hearing your explanation, she initially thinks it was gambling money. But he denies it and explains about screwing up the game, saying they won it with transmissions. He clarifies that he would never do anything illegal. After hearing that, she sighs and says they'll talk better after work. She sends him to get ready for work. Thinking she didn't believe, he insists he is serious. She replies that she believes, more fears it might end up being harder for him. Just like the work. As she leaves, he thinks he will guarantee that she doesn't carry any more debt alone and that he will work hard to give her a better life. Emis reflects that, even having passed through that hell in another dimension, thought real-life problems wouldn't be as heavy as that. But unfortunately, your team leader takes it hard with him. As if Anid, I surround the man who scolds him by treating him like a criminal. He might remembers that as soon as he arrived at the office, Roll Me Up delivered a pile of complicated documents that he had almost organized, facilitating understanding. He had barely started working when the team leader replaces him. Unexpectedly, the nasty boss calls, trial version forwards, and keeps implying, with things that don't even have to do with his work. 10. Throw the card at it and send for coffee to clarify. Rabbit asks which coffee to get, but the man installs the tom, takes an angry look and says they just drink Americana, then asks if Minho didn't teach him anything. So Hambert quickly covers Minho, realizing that the leader intends to criticize the as soon as he shows any weakness. While fulfilling the task, Hambert feels her heavy steps. When he comes back with coffee, sees the leader screaming with Minho, and Minho can take it all with empty eyes, as if it were something everyday. When Mine tries to calmly explain who can take care of the new task, considering your current workload, the leader says he got daring for wanting to choose what to do. The boss throws the documents into it and says he ordered himself to do something. It's to do. Seeing this, Heidi leave the coffee on the boss's table and go help to update the documents. The leader notices and stares at them with anger, saying they are ridiculous. After organizing everything, return to their places, and Remit notices Minru's complicated expression, facing the monitor, with eyes even emptier than normal. Minru apologizes to Rembet for having witnessed something so pathetic. More Rembet minimizes, saying the leader is in a bad mood. Yet, sorry again. Explaining that it's not just that. The new project involves a lot, development, and requires a lot of time. He warns Rembet that maybe I can't pay attention to him as I should. And that's why you feel bad. Rembeil, who analyzed part of the documents, confirms that the project is related to RERP. When seeing the state of Mihu, Hambert says it can help you. Later, after work, Hambert finds Henry and notices his dark circles. Ask why he's so finished, and suspect he didn't sleep. Henry replies that he slept for 3 hours, and suggests that they enter. In coffee, Hambert complains about stressful adult life, worker, and says he could spend a lifetime cursing the team leader. Relaxing, ask what Enru wants to talk. Enru shows cell phone, with several companies trying to contact, including Yonhez Gaming, offering an initial bid of 100 million won. He says they are all desperate to hire them, and that this would be the best choice. Suddenly, notice Humbert forehead bangs, and ask him to relax, but Humbert tells you to stop hiding what you feel, and speak directly, since it's obvious when he's lying. And Enru tries to disguise the Hambert, ask if he really wants him to join a big company. And Enru tries to get around, as Hambert pulls him by his hair, and tells him to stop hiding feelings. He screams in pain and admits he knows of Hambert's financial difficulties, so you want him to have a good job. So he found the proposal excellent. Hambert thanks and says it was Yun Hugh who called him to play Herb. So it makes sense to see what he wants first. Yan Hugh replies that it doesn't make you comfortable, and comments that despite the freedom to look good, in practice it is difficult and progress is slow. He said he'd rather watch and play, and that someone like Rabbit is like a bright star. I want to live the moments together, watch it all happen, and share with other people. That's why it's creating and focused on it. Plans to create a guild that works, so much in the real world, how much in the game. Hambert realizes it's something he mentioned in the army, and Enru is surprised he remembers. Humbert asks how he intends to make money. And Enru explains that it intends to use a function of a video pilot from the life learning platform with higher than expected ad revenue. How Amite is the most effective user. Your videos stand out and attract more players. With this, more people will want to participate. Enru asks the opinion about taking the channel more seriously. Strange Hamite the change, and Enru suggests it is a kick. Ames refuses the title and says he can say whatever he wants, that he will help. Hamite comments that he started playing because of a mistake, and that this is the last chance to find the fort. He wonders what will happen when the game is over, and why did he have to die so many times. While eating, Ian Hughes shows various messages and plays, calling it life. Suddenly, see a different message, gets desperate and tries to turn on, but nobody answers. He is on the verge of losing control. Timby asks you why. And Ruff reminds me of the pioneer group that came in the game, of the German Raston Corporation. He explains that the rewards of the Asphalt mission decrease in quality as they are obtained. And Raston declared that she will monopolize the mission. In addition, slimes turn invisible in the fields, and are spreading rumors that Humbert planned this with a Raston. Humbert is shocked and does not understand. In the game, players call Raston and Humbert, calling them co-plotters. This is because the quality of the items decreases after the best are obtained, while one complains without thinking. Another analyzes that would not make sense. All receive unique items. A player claimed the slimes became invisible because of the Raston, and who wants Humbert to explain this on live? Back to coffee. He might question about the size of the corporation. Enru explains that the value of a company depends on the strong player's owns. Says that one, their archer has combat power of 9,000. Even though I'm weak for a hacker, is still considered a. Humbert thinks, and says there is a way to solve, asking Enru to swallow a live. Because you need to check something. Later, Humbert consult the guide. Find what you are looking for and enter the game. Goes straight to the cave and confirms that the bombs, tears are gathered. By passing carefully, realizes there's a reason for it. Find the slime bomb king. This creature attracts units to absorb them and grow. But the current amount is greater than normal, then sends suspicion of some cause. He finds an artifact that attracts monsters, with the name of Rastonho. The item is single-use, obtained in a northern dungeon, indicating that the Raston placed the artifact in the cave. The combination of item effect with skill of the creature caused the problem. Realizing the plan, Remite throws a fireball at Ray Bomb's slime, destroying before it exploded. He gets a lot of experience, climbs 4 levels and wins their title of Theo, which increases significantly the proficiency of skills. Seeing the game, he wonders how many slimes merged with the king, how Hammett had recorded good slime situation, showing that Raston was behind it. He makes others post the video anonymously, cutting the part where you used your fireball in the community group. It makes players and spectators criticize the German company. All this was possible thanks to the information that Rub had from the guide about John Trevor, a mining entity, who personally dug the cave where was the slime bomb king, and who got sad after the king took over the place. With the information they had, Rabbit managed to easily locate the king. What he found strange was the fact that Jean Trevor be in the guild, but there was no information about the cave. Enitz is restless when he realizes that the guide, which normally does not contain everything, not only omitted important parts, as well as presents a certain imprecision and information different from reality. This makes him wonder if the adventurer, the guide of Thor, left things out on purpose. Now he wants to find out the true identity of this air adventurer. Later he meets Yanur, who comments that proficiency is the main reason by which everyone avoids magic, since it is necessary to develop the skill, something extremely difficult. Most people give up. Yuno is shocked when Humbert reveals that it has achieved 100% proficiency, then start complaining, saying it's impossible to achieve this in one day. He grabs Humbert and asks to see. Humbert explains what proficiency is, lowest possible, but Yuno replies that even so, it is extremely difficult, since learning any magic takes at least a month. Enru insists until Humbert has no choice other than showing. When it shows Enru falls on her knees thinking it's a bud. At this time, Humbert asks him not to reveal live proficiency, because he wants to show something interesting to the villains. Right after, Enru starts live streaming, and informs the chat that they have no connection with the Raston, and who will prove it. First he asks you to watch while the Rambit makes some discoveries, before going looking for the Boring Master. In the Asphalt store, Rambit asks if Rhea ran away again, and receiving confirmation, says she's in Ribble Face, and that soon everyone will be able to live together again. When listening to this, Asphalt is happy and thanks, then asking the reason for the visit. Emily reveals that he wants to learn more magic, and asks if he can. The chat doubts thinking it is impossible, but the Vel surprises when agreeing, leaving all curious about how he would learn a new spell. No proficiency. She delivers a second book and Humbert gets one more mission. Learn to magic. The achieve will gain a new fire spell, called Hero Rank Flame Explosion. Beyond 10,000 gold coins and 3,000 of experience. When they see that a hero rank chat belittles, and assuming it was once a level, impossible to achieve, Humbert notices the Rastonhead grew, waiting outside. Then absorb the book, receiving the rewards, and learn the spell. evolving again to a single level. And Nohu announces on live that Heimbert has learned to new skill while climbing the rankings, as Vol then says if he struggles, you can go to the research laboratory in the city of Ifritamite thinks and comes outside. See the men on their backs waiting anxiously, and passes by them. When passing the ranger, pauses, asking if anything happened, and that he should relax the expression. Then, they buy delicious Asdol books, that Rambert realizes that the corporation cracks. Greedy, curious, asks what Rambert meant. When he said he would show something, Hammett responds, asking what the difference between them and the Rasta members. At this time, men count to 3, and open the books, trying to learn the second fire skill, but the books immediately catch fire. They try to steal but fail, irritating the Vol expels them for burning their books and filling the house with smoke. And Rue then understands why, while the chat, Simsaber ask what happened. Suddenly, one of the Crete men says the mission has changed, and when checking, book rank decreases. After the ranger confirms that no one has managed to learn the spell, he goes to Hambert, says they need to talk. Hambert asks about what. The ranger demands to know why it's only he got the ability. Hammett responds by provoking, saying he should find out for himself. For being a veteran, the Crete gets angry, while the chat finds silence, since they always prevented others from gaining skills. The ranger says that all his 50 men failed, in which the ranking still declined, so it's not a coincidence. Inby confirms it's not a coincidence, and explains that because of his group, many players in Ascent missed the chance to try to reach the hero rank. He also reinforces that he never said it was a coincidence. The ranger gets even more angry. Dimit then explains that proficiency is the basis to rise in ranked, and asks if they develop proficiency before using the book. The ranger gets confused, and Hambert reveals that it is necessary. Put the fireball before shooting. The ranger says this should apply to everyone, and wants to know how Hambert managed to do that. So Hambert reveals he maximized his proficiency. This shocks both the chat and the ranger. To prove, Hambert decides to show his status, and Nohu praises, even not wanting to reveal. He decides to show since it was challenged to the label, reveals that it has maximum proficiency in all abilities. So chat goes into shock and some think he hacked the game. The ranger says he will report you, and the Hammett replies that it can do this, because you have nothing to hide unlike them. Irritated, the ranger goes away, and Hambert tells him to try to play honestly. Oh ranger, go back to the store and send your men keep talking to the able to not miss opportunities. What irritates her, and Bite comments that they can try for 100 days but the result will be the same. He feels sorry for Asphalt for having to deal with them while leaving. Remember that Asphalt is a master who values development, continues of skills, without greed, and that she literally forced him to learn the basics. Tenbit wonders if she did this for having seen many people die, trying to shoot too fast. He remembers when he was greedy and she kicked him out, saying never to come back. Her personality hasn't changed, and the more creepy he insists, but she disgusts them. Yan, who tired of watching that, says Hammett was hard on the group and that Hashim fans can attack them. Hammett boss Yan-Hu deal with this. And he gets confused until he remembers that he owns the account, so Yan-Hu plays with him. Spectators begin to donate and thank Hambert for allowing them to make slime bombs and work on proficiency. As they walk, Hambert says they'll stop by the village store, and Enru asks about Bowder's master. Hamlet says he needs to prepare something first. When they arrive in the city, Hamlet realizes it's crowded and asks why, and in the street points the center of attention, refines a ranger and one of the few elementists. The chat drives the sheep crazy discussing who gets to her. Hamlet asks why there are few elementists. Jinru explains that only those chosen by spirits can use this power. The chat comments that no, only finding a spirit is difficult, how also to communicate with him to control him is something very rare, and spiritual abilities are extremely powerful. This is different from what Raymate remembered, and Enru explains that refined skills are stuck in rank 3, because the title of elementalist is more honorary, since it is not a main path to choose. The spectators, and everyone around, want her to show her spirits. And by chat, Humbert discovers she has 6th ranking magic, and Enru asks Humbert, who replies that he has an interest in spirits, as it is very advantageous to have their power, while watching Raphinus summon the spirits. Enru explains that spiritual arts are different of magic, and that require innate talent, even though it's a game. While everyone is impressed by his skill, Hemit discovers that Raphina has great aptitude for this, having communicated with spirits of water and wind in just 6 months. He also discovers that she is trapped in the 3rd, ranking 10 months ago. What can be a problem that proficiency does not solve? After she finishes and leaves, Himbi asks Enru if it refines is a better elementalist, but Enru says that high-level players are very reserved with their information. How the game was created so that the first Yahello has the right to it. It makes sense that they hide their abilities. After all, information is power. Hemit observes Refine and feels estranged with someone who has communicated with spirits. After she left, he tells the spectators to prepare for next mission, and Enru asks what he intends to achieve. but Hamid says he'll see when they get there. After visiting the store, and Enru is disappointed to see that Hamid only bought several random items, they walk for a while, Hambert driving to the place where the wind meets. When they reach a cliff, Hambert says it looks like an entrance, or Enru disagrees, saying it looks like an entrance to the beyond. Suddenly, Hambert receives a mission: find the boulder swordmaster and gain your recognition, as this can yield a very special technique. While the chat gets scared by the cliff, Hamid thinks about how to get down. Then viewers throw a challenge, challenging to jump without a rope like a bungee jump. Enru calmly says it's dangerous and that they don't need to do this. Spectators continue to donate, and when Yoru realizes that Hamid doesn't answer, look at him and see a devilish smile, presenting what comes. Anu panics, but Hambit grabs it and jumps before he finishes speaking. As they descend the cliff, the chat comments on the courage of Hambit. The fall is long, and Anu passes out in the middle of the way. Hambit then sees a magic circle, and they land safely. Anu agreed, thanking for being alive, and Hambert reports that they have completed the mission. Someone donates and comments that about 300 spectators took their own lives when seeing the Hambert courage test. In Quantidiso, Hambert and Enru survived thanks to Botter's scarf, and he intends to reveal it when Hayton members fall over 10,000 times. Enru notices something and calls Hambert, and looking forward, comes a figure at the top of the rocks. Hambert says he Bowder's master, Enru, by confirming that the mission will end by finding in a swordsman of the wind, is impressed and says they should go soon. Omelette asks if he wants to go first and says the experience inside is impressive, so Dianu should register everything. Dianu gets excited by Helmlet's kindness and call him a true streamer, but Helmlet or hurry. Dianu say Giannis sentiment, more Malanza, come out of the wall and scratch your face. The chat goes into shock, and some think Helmlet is cruel for arming him. Scared and angry, Dianu accuses Hamid of purpose effect, but Hamid says it doesn't matter since he didn't die. The chat finds it funny, but when watching Hamid draw a bow and aim next spear, ask Dianu to apologize. Hamid shoots several arrows into the walls before sending Dianu follow the. Confused, Dianu asks what the rocks are for, and Hamid explains that he noticed other traps, that's why he shot before. Suddenly, the place starts to shake and a huge stone rolls towards them. Desperate, Enru screams and says that there's nowhere to run, but Hambit claims that there is no need. He gathers his fire magic and deflects the stone with one blow. When he saw that he did not completely destroy the tomb, spectators find a weak spell, but then they realize he controlled the power. Some comment that crack people is still falling, what leaves him might. He tells Dianu to continue, and soon after several arrows are fired at them. He might quickly most, impressing the chap. While running out of knees, he takes the sword and tells Dianu to be aware. Enru starts to narrate, saying that Hamid is dodging the edges with the sword, and the chat makes fun of him for describing the obvious. They keep advancing, forcing through the traps. When they are almost safe, Hammy sends Dianu to stop and throws Tom to the ground very close to them. Hammy warns not to let your guard down, and Hugh is surprised, asking how he knows when to dodge. Hammy replies that it is instinct. Actually, it works by acquired muscle memory. After reattacking 55 times, suddenly a stone falls from the ceiling, but Hamlet destroys it with fire. A fragment hits Han Wu's head, but he can take it. When Hamlet says there's little left, Han Wu gets impatient and asks how much is left. After a few steps, Hamlet says they arrive. Han Wu don't believe, thinking there's one more way to get it back, but when looking up, sees the swordsman master of the lively wind asks if they can achieve the skill, but the master commands them to come back. The chat comments if it was all a joke, and Enru complains with the Shah, thinking they went through it all for nothing.